Welcome to the Combative Nerds Podcast. Join us while we break balls and try to outwit each other at every turn while debating all things nerdom and trying to make sense of this world. Look, I'm not gonna lie, this is a Herculean task and I'm not sure we have enough brain power to do so. At the very least, we can laugh and offend each other through the process. Thanks for sharing your day with us. Now on to our show. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Raiderlance, and I am not solo today. I have a special guest who, in my opinion, has the patience of Job. And I will explain why. First, he had to deal with me during gaming, which is a monumental task in its own of patience. But secondly, we've been trying to get together for, 3, 4, 5 months? I kept on pushing it off. We were getting everything down, and I really wanted to talk to him. I still want to talk to him because I think he needs an intervention, but he has been very patient. He's been very gracious, and we first met each other in Marvel Strike Force. So I'd like to introduce Not Maggot, my former Alliance leader. How you doing, brother?
Doing well, man. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Again, I just want to personally tell you thank you. I appreciate you letting me take so long to get you on here.
No, it's my pleasure, man. I've been having a good time with it. I know you and I have been cutting up about this, and the fact that you've actually done this is pretty impressive, man. Hats off to you.
Oh, I appreciate it. And part of doing this, I almost forgot this. Got to do the call to action, guys. Please like, subscribe, comment. We got our first comment on Apple Podcasts. I appreciate it. So shout out to that person. Anybody else who can just help us out, take 2 seconds. I'll wait. I'll count them in. 1, 2. Just like, subscribe, do something. You don't have to listen to us all the time. Just whatever you could do to help us with the algorithm, we will appreciate it. So the reason I'm having Not Maggot with us today is because we were going to talk about something, but then he brought up another subject that I think is more salient and he has way more to talk about. And the topic today is it really cheaper to keep her? So why did you want to talk about that today?
Well, it's the every man's debate, my friend. Is it cheaper to keep her?
So the backstory was we were going to talk about something else, and then I heard a little bit of the ongoings in his house, and I'm like, oh man, we need to talk about this instead. And he was like, oh, please don't. I will be in trouble because the spouse will hear this. So this might be his one and only appearance. I kind of sealed his fate on this one, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, that, and I'm worth more dead than alive, so there's that part.
Oh, yeah. Okay, pro tip. You never put her directly as the beneficiary. You put it into your estate with a clause that no malevolent acts or any suspicious circumstances can she be a beneficiary, that it'll go to your next of kin. So any questions like that, not only have I had to draft those type of things, I've had to incorporate those type of things because of my big mouth.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all.
Thanks. So, okay, before we get into why you keep playing that dumpster fire of a game, I wanted to ask you something on more of a personal nature. Before, we've kind of talked a little bit about our faith back and forth. And I'm pretty good at profiling people and sizing them up. So I wanted to take a guess at what religion you practice, if you wouldn't mind.
Take a shot, man.
Okay. My best guess is that you're a monk of Opus Dei, which, if you don't know what that is, it was a sect of Catholicism that was popularized in the movie The Da Vinci Code. You remember that? Where the main villain, he was a monk who was albino and he practiced bloody mortification.
Yeah, that beats himself, right?
Yeah, kind of self-abuse.
Yeah.
So, am I correct?
Not quite.
Okay. Well, then, please explain to me how the hell you would join an alliance, become a leader of a cluster of a shit show like Marvel Strike Force, because that is clear self-abuse.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, that's... It's definitely, I don't know if it's an interesting story. I think it's kind of funny, but it was totally by accident.
So first and foremost, would you agree that is self-abuse? Being not only playing Marvel Strike Force, but then being a leadership in a cluster?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. There's no question. I think every leader will tell you that.
Okay. Well, then my bad on guessing wrong, but I thought, man, you fit the profile for sure. So, okay, please tell me.
I think every player at this point does.
Yeah, I loved myself out of that game.
Yeah, no, I think that there's quite a few people that would describe playing that game as being in an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
No offense to those people. But it's like, no, baby, come back. Blog post. And you're like, okay, I'll give him one more chance. And all your friends are like, why don't you just leave that fucking thing?
Like friends playing or friends outside?
Either or. Just take your pick, man.
That was the interesting phenomenon with me is I would very vocal about my frustrations, and I would say 50% of the other players like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I'm addicted and I can't leave, but you should. It was like I felt like I was in an opium den and people were just, or a crack house, and people were just looking at each other like, yeah, this is stupid. I don't know why we're here, and then taking another hit.
Yeah, and it's not like they're even directly benefiting from it because they're not even selling you the drugs.
Yeah, it's an awful. Okay, so how did you get addicted?
So honestly, this was my side chick that became the main chick, so to speak. I mean,
Nice.
Seriously. I kind of started playing. I'm a huge Star Wars fan.
Okay.
I started playing Galaxy of Heroes and
Sure.
played that for several years. It was the first hero collector game that I really got into.
Okay.
And mostly it was the IP. I mean, it's
Sure,
Star
of
Wars,
course.
and it had the ups and downs and all that stuff that everything else did. But all of the hero collector games are the same. They all have they call them hero collectors, but basically it's just monetized gotchas.
Pretty much.
But so if you're not a spender or you only spend occasionally or what have you, usually the other option is grind your ass off,
Yep.
So the events and stuff like that, you spend a lot of time, and that's that. So played that for a long time, and eventually Capital Games had kind of run me out of patience with all of their paywalls and bullshit that I just didn't want to partake in. And so I just kind of said, fuck it. And I'd tried Marvel Strike Force for a period of, 3 minutes previously, and I was bored out of my mind. I didn't
really?
even make it through the intro. Yeah, I did. It was just like, it was one of those, it was getting going, that getting started feeling. It's like...
Let me interrupt you. At what point was Marvel Strike Force as it is? First year, second year when you jumped in?
It probably would have been either late 2019 or early 20.
Okay. So before COVID, before the big, huge rush.
Yeah, right before COVID, I tried, because I'd heard, content creators that did both and this sort of thing online and whatnot. So I tried it and I was like, yeah, okay, I can see it's literally a copy and paste of this. And instead of, one character, they just pasted over, they took Padme out and they put, some other Marvel character in it. I mean, it was literally a bootleg copy with better graphics. Which the graphics side was probably the thing I was like, man, that's really cool. They really did a nice job with the graphics, and the art team, even to this day, is probably, no one can debate that the art team has their shit together.
Yeah, it's the saving grace of the game.
Yes, 100%. It's like the dumpster fires on the inside, and the art team is the trash can holding it.
Yeah, pretty much.
It is the lipstick on the pig.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly. It's like the golden chalice with all the disgusting stuff inside. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I tried it. It didn't get me, from the jump. I mean, other than just being cool and pretty, so to speak. So I kind of uninstalled it and walked away. Yeah. Yeah. So I walked away, and then Galaxy Heroes did like the Galactic Legends went from, one or two of them. They come out harder. They come out worse. And I was like, and that's what set off the pre-COVID exodus.
Interesting.
And so it just timing wise was right at COVID.
It almost sounds like what Marvel Strike Force is now doing with the Four Horsemen.
Oh, really? You'd never think that they looked at something and said, well, we're just going to do that same thing, but differently.
I didn't know that's where it came from because I've never played Galaxy of Heroes. But okay, so they're essentially just following the pattern, and they're 1 to 2 years behind of Galaxy of Heroes?
Yeah, they basically watched the science experiment happen.
Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, you got to remember, they all follow each other. I mean, the only difference between Galaxy Heroes and Marvel Strike Force and, Raid Shadow Legends is they all have to try and say, okay, what did that company do and how much did it make them?
That makes sense.
And then if it was profitable, then...
Sons of bitches.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's such a bean counter thing to do, and it makes total economic sense. But for people who care about the IP... I mean, you're just getting violated along the way. It does not matter. It's almost like there's All Fair in Love and War and mobile games. You know what I mean? Or in capitalism.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
and the worst part is, I think the better the IP, the worse that they can feel like they can treat you because
Oh, interesting.
they're Marvel. Like they're not Marvel, but they have it. They have the IP. So it's almost like
I see what you're saying.
they've already got the IP. So why do they need to worry? Because as long as they make sure that Iron Man looks cool as shit, then, you're replaceable as long as you're not spending thousands of dollars a month.
I mean, that totally makes sense from that perspective. If you already bought into the Marvel Universe, I mean, you're not going to unlove Wolverine. You're not going to unlove Captain America, Spider-Man if you're already in. That's fucking devious, man.
Oh yeah. And, like I said, I don't set out, like, it's hard to sit there and say, all of the people that work for Scopely are bad, because I really don't think that's the case. I think that they're probably, I think it's the higher you go, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a lot of people that, probably are thinking that they're making a great game, and then they hand it off to somebody who then takes it and kind of crumbles it, like that abusive father that's like, oh, that's a painting, your fucking painting's ugly, and they throw it across the room, and the kid is just left in tears. That's probably half of the groups that work on this game. They're the ones crying in the corners going, this is not what I had in mind. This is not what I designed. You just basically beat my child.
Yeah. Not only with this game, but just across most experiences. That sounds like an upper management thing to do. And I'm somewhat defend upper management in the sense of, like, let's just say the art department or people who are coming up with the storylines. They have a very focused task ahead of them, and they want to achieve this end or create this story or create this product, let's just say. And then when it gets to the top of the chain, those managers have to look at more of a global perspective. And in other words, if I love content and I'm creating a story or some type of vision or some type of path to move forward in the storyline or in the game, I am free from having to figure out monetization, marketing, implementation, all those other big considerations. But the problem is, it seems like those type of bean counter considerations are the only thing that's considered, and not staying true to the IP or the source material or anything else. And I wish there was just more of a melding as opposed to it flipping, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I was thinking about this and I was like, what analogy could I think of that would best describe as a person outside looking in, right?
Sure.
And I think the best one would be imagine going into your boss because he's asking for, new brainstorming ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go in and you pitch this amazing proposal, like the best presentation. It's going to make this product that you think is going to literally cure cancer, solve world hunger, and have world peace eternally, right?
Sure.
And then they thank you for your presentation and they say, leave it on the desk for us.
Oh boy.
And then they excuse you. And then they say, all right, fuckers, how much money do we think we can make off of this? And that's basically what I feel like they do. They take these people's independent things that are probably true to the storyline and stuff like that. And then they basically say, okay, now how much can we do? How can we do this faster and cheaper?
And more profitable.
That makes profitability. If we can do it faster and we can do it for cheaper, then our profit goes up.
Yeah. Here's what the real rub for me. I know they had Cerebro, and then I think they had his replacement with a female. And they touted both of these as being managers who are players, right? That's their big thing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these devs play the game, so they understand your pain, or they are sympathetic, or they're fans. And no, they're not, right? Or you should say they're managers first, fans second. You need to make this delineation about the priorities of these people. The priorities is to make money. It's not fan service. It's not fan happiness. It's money.
Well, I mean, even Cerebro's even said it. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much, there's only so many things we can do. We can focus on this or we can focus on this. This one keeps me eating and living indoors. This one is a minor inconvenience for you, so suck it up. I mean, I can't fault them for wanting to eat and live indoors either.
I can't, but I can call bullshit. Because if you look at their revenues, they could hire 10 more people to clean up half of their problems. And they wouldn't fill it.
They could.
But they won't because it doesn't maximize profit.
Bingo.
Yeah.
And, especially, I don't know if you ever listened to there was an interview with the creator of Diablo. and he's a player of Marvel Strike Force, went fucking off one night because of all the bugs and glitches and
I
shit
did
like
hear that. Yes, I did hear that.
Did you?
Yeah, it was. I don't know why, but it was like he's basically, this game is irredeemable. I cannot play it solely on the bugs. I'm not even going to talk about anything else. I think his term was, it's the glitchiest game ever created.
Yeah, and the thing is when he was talking about it though, one of the things that he had said is that he's approaching it not from a player only. He's approaching it literally from an insider's perspective, knowing
Yeah.
the signs and symptoms of, you spend all of this money and resources and talent developing this game, and then it hits this zenith point, which for Scopely, let's face it, happened to be COVID.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
100%, it was like, and the problem is they never figured out why it worked.
Interesting.
Because the game, it wasn't like the game just came out. Think about Marvel Future Revolution, MFR, right?
Okay.
It comes out, it's Marvel, it has this huge spike. And then what they do immediately after, like they did this beta launch, everything was great. They were getting all these reviews. Even Marvel Strike Force players that, like from the outside were thinking, Scopely better watch out. You better start, treating your players right, because they're all going to leave.
Sure.
2 months later, half the servers are shut down. 3 months later, it's a blip on the radar. It took off. But the beta launch versus what actually came out at global was very different.
Oh no.
And highly paywalled. That's the story of so many of these games, is they do the beta to get all of the drum up and everything else.
And let me interrupt. And I'm assuming the beta is usually ran by the people who care about the stories, aren't thinking about monetization. The art department, the storyline people, the content creators. And then I'm assuming after beta, that's where these managers and bean counters get their hooks in.
I would imagine that they're probably sitting, the bean counters and everything else aren't assigned to it yet. They're kind of looking at it more so at a high level ticker tape. How much money are we hemorrhaging on this project?
Yeah.
When do we have to basically decide that this project is too costly and we need to scrap it? Because for every game that launches, you got to think that there's probably 10 that never even make it off the drawing board.
True.
So they're not looking at just this game. They're looking at the last 10 games that failed and all of that stuff. And so I think that there is a little bit of, from a business perspective, again, I can't fault the company for making money. Shit, Candy Crush was freaking selling little rainbow paintbrushes and shit,
Of course.
That got me through a honeymoon when I had Montezuma's Revenge, for God's sakes, playing Candy Crush.
So sorry.
So
for your wife.
It's we both got it.
Oh,
so
God.
literally that was like, yeah.
I'm surprised you didn't annul the marriage after that. There's certain things you
we were joking.
There's certain things you shouldn't have to
man.
suffer with each other until later in years. Oh.
Yeah. Needless to say, if we were ever concerned about any sort of bathroom situations, we got over it real quick.
And for any of the listeners who don't know what Montezuma's Revenge, of course I'm Mexican, so I know. It's when you essentially drink the water down in Mexico. And especially if you're outside a hotel, sometimes hotels have a proper filtration system where they'll take out all the bugs that us weak-stomached Americans can't handle. But yeah, it's not fun.
No, it was rough. But yeah, so that was Candy Crush was, match 3, and that was a couple days of our honeymoon was rough, man.
Oh,
so, but yeah. But like I said, I can't fault a company for making money.
Sure.
Like obviously any company, unless you're a nonprofit, your goal is to make money. However, when you cross the line from reasonable profit to, excessive profit at the expense of others,
gouging
to their detriment.
let's be straight here.
Gouging.
To gouging.
Yeah, but they have the best model. Think about it. They have the best model. They literally have the best model because they take real money and they exchange it for fake things.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Now, for perspective, do you know the revenue of this coming year for Scopely for just Marvel Strike Force, or do you know last year's? Because I think it was like 200 million.
I think I could look it up on Sensor Tower.
I think it was an outrageous amount of money.
I want to say 2020 was like 330.
Okay. Oh, so it was way more than I thought.
Yeah. Now, you have to remember too, the numbers are going to, like, everybody looks at them now and they're like, oh, well, they're down and this, that, and the other. And it's like, yeah, but you're not counting Exola, which runs their website.
Oh, they bifurcated their ledger so they can. Oh, geez, these guys are just.
And Sensor Tower doesn't report that because that's a web commerce thing.
Okay, so let's get into that after you find these numbers, because that, from the player perspective, kind of was a little nice because they gave a lot of freebies. But Scopely wasn't doing it to be nice. They were doing it to get a higher return on their investment. They broke contractual obligations to bypass certain commitments they made so that they can get a higher percentage of the funds that the players would spend on their game.
Yeah, I mean, it's 30%. That's what I think. It's 28 to 30% is what Apple and Android or Google Play take off of in-app purchases that they process.
So let me just lay out the actual facts of what happened. So when you would buy an in-game package for Marvel Strike Force, you would have to do it through Amazon Coins, through the Apple Store, through Google Play. And then about a year and a half ago, Scopely launched their own web store, which meant that you linked your player account to this new web store that was run by Marvel Strike Force, and they would do the payment processing, which meant they cut out Amazon Coins, they cut out the Apple Store, they cut out the Google Play Store, which means they did not have to share the profits of that, like Not Maggot just said, that 20-30%. Selling the same packages for the same amount of money. And what Marvel Strike Force did is to make sure all the players transitioned to use the Marvel Strike Force web store. They gave, I would say, for the first month, a lot of fantastic deals. $1 deals, $2 deals, free deals. Log in every day and use our store for the next week. And they just pumped you full of stuff so that you would have been foolish to not join their web store, which meant they incentivized all, maybe not all, but 50, 70% of their players to transition over to the web store. And within a month's time, they cut out all their partners. It was a ruthless business deal that you would see on Shark Tank. But I mean, these sons of bitches are making so much money, and it wasn't enough. They got to max that. They're evil geniuses.
But you got to think too, the fact that they have fewer people working on this product now, it creates by pushing that. That's their way of basically saying, "Hey, how do we show increased revenue?" Well, we cut out the very same platforms that we're getting new clients from, right?
Sure.
Be like, imagine shutting down your brick and mortar store of 25 years and saying, "Hey, we're going to an online only model." And that's kind of what they did.
Yeah.
And I think part of it might have been driven a little bit by COVID because they realized how much they could do remotely. But there's still a lot of these same issues, but now they're just perpetuated because they never got around to fixing them. So
do you think it's a lack of vision or an intentional running to the ground? And let me lay out my argument here. So when I was talking to IEG about why he quit Marvel Strike Force, sorry about that. We were all in the same alliance. And so, yeah, sorry about that, man. I was saying that I really feel like this was a hostile takeover by Scopely, right? They looked at, what was the company that owned Marvel Strike Force before?
Foxnext.
Thank you. So Foxnext ran it. It wasn't great, but it was better from a management perspective. Scopely bought it and immediately implemented all these profitability methods that has been just making this game go downhill, in my opinion. And, well, sorry about that. I just threw a wrench in our podcast because I got a text message saying that some money was drawn from a Bank of America account. And I panicked because I used to have one, and then I realized I don't have one. And I went, oh shit, my mom has one. So I was faced with the decision that I had to talk to a 72-year-old woman and explain she could have just gotten hacked and had money wired to her, and she was in the middle of doing yard work, so I had to call my brother to go get her. And she goes, no, dumbass, I closed my account a while ago. So we were trying to get scammed. These goddamn people and their accents, I don't know why they're getting worse during the holidays, but I get probably about 1 or 2 scam phone calls or emails a day. So I am not a happy camper.
Well, you got to remember, so it was basically those same people are the ones that were sending out all the bullshit political text messages about 3 months ago. So, and we were the fortunate state that had multiple categories. We were getting emails and text messages. Vote for this guy. Vote for this girl. This guy's an asshole. This guy's a liar, and this person's a crook. And it's like, fuck all you. Just stop texting me.
Yeah, it just pisses me off how much of our information is out there. But I know we do it to ourselves because, like we were talking about the web store. I'm sure Scopely sold all my shit to anybody who was willing to buy it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they basically sold that cookie that they took from when you logged in.
Yep.
And you had just come from Pornhub. They took that and they sold it and said, hey,
well, of course
this guy's into some dark shit.
Of course, that's the only free one out there. You don't pay for that stuff. That's ridiculous. You pay for, character packs and costumes. You don't pay for porn.
That's right. Actually, which one comes first? Is it you don't pay for porn because you're buying character costumes, or is it the other way around?
I would find it demeaning to myself if I had to pay for that service when no one else does. So it's more the principle of it. I was watching this comedian one, not my joke, and she was basically saying how horrible it is that people spend money on all these various things, their coffees, their cigarettes or whatever, but people refuse to pay for porn. Like that should be the only thing people actually get paid for, that type of work. And I mean, she has a great argument there, but internet's not my fault.
Yeah.
Above my pay grade.
No. But I have heard that anytime technology makes a step forward, the first industry that takes advantage of whatever that technology is, they might even be leading the way on it. I don't know.
They're trailblazers. But everything.
Absolutely they are. Absolutely they are.
The move to putting stuff on VHS, the porn industry just, they were the trailblazers. Moving over to DVR, it is what it is, man. We don't like to think about it, but what do they call them? I think from an investor perspective, they're called sin companies. Casinos, cigarette brands, all that stuff. If you look at it on a long term from an investment and retirement perspective, they give the best dividends with the most stable amount of returns and growth. It's just, we're human. It is what it is. You're not going to change us.
Oh yeah. Yeah. All your vices, they're profitable.
Yeah. Until you start putting chips in people. I mean, there's no way we can get around it. But anyway, so that's a long-winded way of saying, screw you scammers. I'm glad you probably live in shitholes. And what were we talking about? We were talking about Scopely, and I believe how I felt it was a hostile takeover when they took it from Fox Next. And, in those type of situations, you find a profitable company, another vulture type company comes in, buys that company, and instead of saying, we're going to run this for cash flow, they look to start maximizing and juicing revenue with the intent to running that company to the ground. So they're going to buy it for X dollars, and then they know if they implement certain procedures or methods, they can get Y dollars out of it. And then they just net the profit, and then they move on to some other company and do it again. It's completely what it felt like with Scopely. And I didn't want to be a part of it anymore.
In business, that's what equity firms do. They take over a company, they lean it up, and if it's got multiple divisions, sometimes they'll even partition those divisions off, like the less profitable ones, and they'll fire that whole section, shut down that whole branch, whatever it is. They lean the shit out of it, and then it looks better on paper, and then they sell it off, and they reap the reward.
Yeah.
That's literally like basic business for equity firms and stuff like that. They just buy and sell.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure if I was making those type of salaries, I would have a different perspective on it. But as a consumer of those companies, it hurts every time. I understand. I don't think I'm saying we should change it. That's just the nature of business. We get a lot of benefits out of capitalism. So I'm not going to complain, but it just sucks when it hits home. It is what it is.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And it's usually, and as it is now, the litigious system doesn't catch up. Like the judicial system and, laws and regulations don't catch up. And it usually takes some major catastrophe for laws to take action. And that's just how it works. I mean, and the internet is rapidly changing. So by the time they even can get 50 fucking people to agree on something, they've already had 5 years. They've roundtabled it. They're still talking about whether or not dial-up should be a public utility.
Yeah.
We're on fucking high-speed gigabit internet.
It's really interesting from my perspective. I agree with you, and I partially disagree with you, coming from a legal perspective. So I don't know if I told you this before, but I'm actually an attorney, believe it or not. And so,
I feel bad for
I know
any courtroom you're in.
it's a hard sell. Just the face alone throws people off. And so I agree with you. The legal system is slow, but I almost blame the legislative branch, the people who are creating these laws.
1,000%.
Now, what most people don't know, 60 to 70% of politicians are lawyers, right? Especially at the top echelons. You're
They're
talking
liars?
about Congress.
Yeah, we know
Senate.
that. They're liars.
Yeah, exactly. So they're slow because they're holding all their meetings and they got to check with all their donors and figure out a way that they can monetize it on the side. Where I disagree with about the legal system being slow, it's all these fucking attorneys who are creating these contracts and exploiting loopholes, which are the ones who are enabling all these companies, all these people to get away with all this crap. Right? It's like with the tax code. It's not necessarily all the CPAs that are creating all these shell companies and do it into, that foreign country, and so then you sell to your own subsidiary in this country, and then you lower your tax. It's fucking attorneys who are doing this because they're the best exploiters. And so
They literally create the laws and the loopholes. They know what's specifically in there. And the more
Yes.
detailed you get, the easier it is to get around it.
Yes. And you're better at getting around that type of stuff. It's like a thief being your home security chief, right? They know it from both angles. And so hopefully you're hiring the reformed thief, because otherwise you're just screwed. It's a mess. I don't see there being solutions.
The compensation is not aligned. It's not aligned. That's
True.
the issue. Is the compensation is completely out of alignment with the end goal if we're agreeing on the same end goal.
True. Yeah, you're always incentivized. And
that's basic life, if in companies, if you're incentivized to sell something, then whether or not it's actually good for the individual, that shit's going to get sold. So what do you do?
And to compound that, when you only hit these people with fines and penalties, right? They just chalk it up to a cost of doing business.
Absolutely. If you make 10 million and then you got to pay $1 million, who fucking cares?
It's what these banks do all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just, yeah.
And that takes us to what the FTC is going to be doing when they're looking at a lot of these mobile companies, because they're looking at what it is, how much is it going to cost us if we get caught?
Yep.
And then how much are we going to make in between now and if we get caught? And when is that if?
And do we know or have an inside track to any of the agents or people in the FTC who used to work for us?
Yeah, and can we hire them to consult so they can write us the gray area into it so that we're not expressly breaking the law?
Yeah. There's a statistic for former government, I don't want to say contractors, but employees always go to the private sector. It's like it's the equivalent of a district attorney prosecuting people for years, and then they turn around and retire and become a public defender. I'm not a public defender, a defense attorney. And then they just make shit tons of money and they know the legal system inside and out. So then they go play for the other side. That is with all government agencies across the board. If you actually do some Googling, you will see that the majority of the representatives or the CEOs or people on the heads of these companies or the boards, they're a lot. They usually have about 20, 30% former government employees for the same organization that used to regulate them.
Absolutely.
It's a sick game.
Oh, it is. It is. And it's not quote unquote direct pay to play, because they're not saying, hey, in 10 years, come join our firm. But when they retire, they pick up the phone and say, hey, remember all that shit I helped you with? Yeah, we kind of lambasted you on, one or two of these things. We let 9 others slide. So how about you, you ever think about hiring somebody from the inside? I know where the bones are buried.
Yeah, it's the best. I don't want to say the best, but one of the clearest examples of this is former presidents and all their speaker fees that they get. And they usually
their book tours. Yep.
Yeah, they usually tour all their, former donors or the people that they kind of represented. It's a messed up system.
But it's the best one we've got.
I would rather have this system than other countries, man.
Yep.
We have mitigated corruption, in my opinion, instead of straight up corruption. So, okay, you shared this FTC article with me. Why don't you go a little bit more about and why you believe, and I agree, that Scopely is one of these nasty bastards that the FTC is warning us against?
So I think one of the biggest pieces is, like I was joking about before, is they literally make, like, it's the best business practice of taking real money and converting it into basically fake currency, right? Like, you're not even getting a tangible good.
Yeah.
You're getting an emotion, right? The problem,
Metaverse.
yeah. The problem is, though, is they're preying on those same addictions and motives of a casino without
Yes.
disclosing that it's a casino.
Yes.
So, like, for example, you look at what the age requirement is or the age range on this mobile game.
Mhm.
It's going to say that it's suitable for children. You know, maybe if you were to make a video game, okay, there's some violence, but no one dies. They vanish,
Yeah.
right? So they eliminate the blood and gore like Mortal Kombat would. That would give it that,
Yeah.
rated T for teen or
Right.
whatever. So they dumb it down enough to get the adults to want to play. The kids want to be Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, Luke Cage, whomever, right? They Iron Man, whatever. And they start playing this game. Well, there's also there's a bunch of little offers in there that incessantly pop up as soon as you log on the game. Like if I open the game right now, I've got 5 pop-ups that are going to happen before I even get
Sure.
to do anything. And
Sure.
all of them are either in-game currency or purchases. So, but the issue is that they're not going for, okay, this is what you're getting for this price in most cases. In most cases, it involves a middle piece that is basically known as a loot box, right? Call it what you want.
Right.
It's an orb. It's a fucking loot box. You put a coin and you pull a handle and you get a result.
Yep.
And
It's a slot machine.
it absolutely is. And so, but they don't say that, right?
Right.
And they've had instances since I've been playing that they don't even do a good job of publishing the actual rates of what you're
Yeah.
going to get, the chances of each drop. And so they start to kind of compound this. Okay, you do this action for a week and you get this thing that's a loot box or whatever. And then it nets a different result that puts you on, here's the worst part, a leaderboard.
Right. Right.
So that you're compared to basically your peers. You pull those things up, and it's literally like it's a who's who of who's spending the most money.
Yeah.
They're literally just, that's how they are.
And we have to frame this in a game that is competitive, right?
100%.
It's not going to make your game easier to get to the final boss so you beat the game. It's not an aspect of the game is competitive. No, 90% of this game is competitive. So not only are forced to get these loot boxes if you want to keep the same power level, the same level of competitiveness, right? But also your odds are different. I've been in so many times where I'll buy an offer and somebody else will buy the same offer and they get the great reward at the end and I didn't. So even though we competed the same, even though we bought the same loot boxes, there is still a difference. And then you throw in the algorithms that the people who pay the most actually have better chances than what are posted. And I know this is all not proven, but we all know.
Kabam has a patent on that.
Do they?
Yeah, and Fox Next bought Kabam, and Scopely bought Fox
Geez.
Next.
What is it called in Scopely? Seed theory. There we go.
Oh,
Seed
yeah,
theory
yeah.
is real.
Yes, yeah.
Seed theory is totally real. I've gone to different alliances where I was in an alliance with big spenders and I was in an alliance with moderate spenders. There's a reason why I got the most 7 and 6 stars when I was in the spender alliance, right? It just magically happened. Just the timing just happened to be there. I don't think so. I think there's some algorithm.
There's a sinister ebb and flow to it though, because
What do you mean?
Well, if you are a heavy spender, then the rates do, seemingly, again, unproven, right? Allegedly,
Sure.
quote unquote, air quotes, get better.
Sure.
But if you are a light to moderate spender, those rates will give you a temporary period of increased drop rates. Why? To endorphin spike, You got the casino $5, right? So you won $5. What are you going to do with that $5? You're not going to hit to the casino checkout desk and say, hey, I made $5. What are you going to do? You're going to go deeper, right? You move from penny slots to nickel slots, right? And so you double down. And that's where they get you, because we got you to spend a little bit. We got our little bit in there, right? And then it becomes even more when they get, well, if you spent 15, what happens if you spend 30? You know? And so before you know it, it's one thing to accidentally click an in-store or in-app currency offer, right? Like we've all done that because the fucking pop-ups are terrible.
Sure.
You accidentally buy something with cores and you're like, fuck.
Right.
But when it's legitimate money and you're preying on these emotions without disclosure, and you're also basically just gambling wall after gambling wall.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's even gotten worse because they added the extra element of, well, if you want to compete, it's not even just about how much you do, how much you spend. There's 23 other people in this alliance that if one person slips, one person fucks up, one person, God forbid, has a family member sick or die, or their dog dies or something like that, gets COVID, God forbid, right? So any one of those situations where they're unable to, quote unquote, do their part, now 23 other people are at risk of being upset with you. So what do? Well, there's a $5 offer in there that'll get you what you missed to help the other 23 people. So now it's not even so much that the company is trying to coerce you. You're getting peer pressured into this if you slip, if you don't perform. And that's probably the most sinister part, because they're basically abusing the only thing, in my opinion, that keeps people in this fucking game, which is the community.
I saw another YouTube content creator, one of the main ones. I don't think it was Boylon, or it might have been OMG, where he was reading an article of a dev, and I don't think it was specifically Marvel Strike Force, but he was making the correlation that this dev used to work for a similar mobile game, and they acknowledged certain tactics. And so there was some correlation. I don't know if they went to move to Scopely, or Scopely assumed that company. But they specifically talked about the element of peer pressure as a marketing or persuasion tactic to get people to spend more. In other words, my point is, you're not theorizing here. This is on the books as something being taught in some fucking manual or regulation given to a newly hired person at Scopely. These are one of the tactics we're going to implement to push players to spend more money, is to use other players to basically be our representative. It's almost like one of the shittiest pyramid schemes, or the multi-level marketing MLMs that I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely.
And it works.
100% it does. Because especially if you so going back to when I first started, think about it. I didn't feel connected. I didn't enjoy the game to even get through the fucking trial period, right? So what do? I uninstall it, right? Then Galaxy Heroes pisses me off, and I'm like, fuck this game. I'm out. And I kept it just because the group that I was in, they call them guilds, I think is what they're called. Clan, guilds, alliances. They're all basically just a consortium of a group of people that are doing the same thing and trying to achieve the same goal, right? It's a team.
Correct.
So we're going through this, and I'm like, I kept with both games. As I'm picking up one, I'm staying in the other, and kind of just doing the bare bones that the guild expected, so that I could contribute and kind of hang out in the event that my delusional brain says, oh, well, maybe this time will be different. Maybe I can just give him one more chance, right? Yeah, fuck it.
Right.
And so I go and I start Marvel Strike Force again. But here's the thing. I thought back, okay, how did I feel the most connected? Well, it was through a group. I stumble into what is Exodus now, the alliance that I lead. And it's a couple of guys that started, that are veteran players that started alternate accounts to help bring people over from this other game, explain the correlations that are similar.
I didn't know that. Okay.
That's how I got started. Yeah. They actually they saw what was going on. They saw this huge influx in the recruiting areas of all these former Galaxy Heroes players. And so I was one of them.
Exodus is a great name.
That's why it's named what it is. It was literally the mass awesome. Exodus Isn't that fantastic? That's where it came from.
That's it. That's our show. Join Not Megan and myself for part 2 of where we continue to trash Scopely and their unscrupulous business tactics. Please do us a favor and like, subscribe, share this podcast so we can get some traction. Once I get around to it, check us out on our socials. Combative Nerds on Patreon, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You know the deal. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you next episode.